Siobhan Muir. Welcome back to Cooking with Siobhan. So today I need to make some muffins for an event that's coming up, and I thought the best thing to do is to get the master muffin recipe, which is great because you can once you have the basics, then you can make any muffin you would like. Today we are going to make cinnamon apple or apple cinnamon muffins. These are going to be nut-free because I don't want crunchies in my muffins. I want them soft like cake, and that's where we're going with. But here's the main part that you're going to need for any muffin you want to make. You're going to need 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose gluten-free flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 1 stick or 1/2 cup of butter. If it's salted, don't add salt to your recipe. If it's unsalted, add salt to your recipe. That's how this goes. 3/4 cups of light brown packed sugar. I generally cut the sugar. I don't want it terribly sweet. I tend to cook a lot like the Europeans, so I'm only doing 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. 2 large eggs, 1/2 cup sour cream, 1/4 cup of milk of any kind. I'm using almond milk, but you can use goat milk, regular cow milk, whatever, oat milk, anything you'd like. 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. And so that's the basic. That's what you're doing for the basic. Now, on the back here is apple cinnamon muffins. Mix an additional 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg with the dry ingredients. So because I warmed up the butter so it would be even softer, I'll get another bowl and we'll put the dry ingredients in a bowl so that we can kind of add things together. You'll also need 1 cup of peeled and chopped apples and any nuts you'd like. And again, I am not doing the nuts, but then they said sprinkle muffin tops with oats before baking. So that's what we'll do. But at least you have the basic. And this time I bought Honey Z or Honey's apples, and they're so good. They're, I think, even better than Honey Crisp. Although I'm not unhappy with Honey Crisp, but these are some of the best apples I've had since I discovered opal apples. So let's get started. I'm going to get another bowl. This one, like I said, has the butter in it, and we're going to do all the work into this one, but we want the smaller bowl for the dry ingredients. The first thing we're going to need is 1 3/4 cups of gluten-free flour. Into that, you're going to put 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, which is on the floor because it's a huge bag and I'm not putting it up on my counter for that. I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this, but there is salt already in my butter, so you don't want to overdo it too much. But I am going to add the salt. This is where it says 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, but because we're making the apple, it said an additional 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So we will put in a single teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Okay. And then it said 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Well, absolutely. If you have ground nutmeg, put in your 1/4 teaspoon. I don't have ground nutmeg. I have nutmeg nuts. Because nutmeg is very powerful when it's fresh like this. This is a nutmeg nut. You're not gonna need the full 1/4 teaspoon because it's fresh. You're going to need 1/8 of a teaspoon at most. But what I'm gonna do, because I'm grinding it directly, is I'm gonna do about that much. Trust me. Any more than that and you've got overwhelming nutmeg flavor. Probably, and if you're making cinnamon apple, overwhelming nutmeg, maybe not so great. So definitely keep that in mind. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a whisk and you're gonna combine all of this. It's always good to do this with your dry ingredients because then you don't have to worry about, oh, did I put the right stuff in? Once you have this stuff all mixed together, set it aside. While you're doing this, please definitely set up your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 177 degrees Celsius. Mine is already going because I was baking something else this morning, so definitely set your oven. And then it said spray a 12 count muffin pan with non-stick spray or line them with liners. I line them with liners. I don't want to clean this thing. Also, if I'm giving away the muffins, I'm using, paper liners, because then if they never come back, they never come back. I do have silicone liners, so if I was making stuff for stuff that happens at home, silicone liners will be fine for, having home, like, a birthday party or something here. But if you're giving them away, definitely want paper liners. I have more than 12 things set aside because I don't know. Sometimes this recipe works out exactly only 12, and sometimes it does more. So I have more set aside. In a large bowl, using a handheld mixer, beat the butter on high speed until smooth and creamy, about a minute. Light, fluffy, and well beaten. Add in the brown sugar and beat on high until creamed, about 2 full minutes. Haha. 2 full minutes. So then add in the eggs, sour cream, and vanilla extract. Beat on medium for 1 minute and then turn up to high speed. So, you remember how to do the eggs, right? Leave them in a bowl. Especially when you have a counter that has an edge to it and it just rolls right off. Definitely know how to do the eggs. And the sour cream. 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. Beat on medium for about a minute, and then on high until the mixture is combined and creamy. Okay, so this is basically all the wet ingredients. Should look something like that. And then it says pour the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients and beat on low speed until just combined. Then add the milk. Well, it says fold 1 cup of peeled chopped apples into the batter in step 4. This is where we're at. So I think we'll add the dry and then we'll fold the apples in like you would fold in berries. So I think we'll add the dry. Start a little at a time, otherwise you're going to have the poof factor, and you don't really want that. I know it looks kind of chunky and not quite combined. Don't worry. What I'm going to do next is add the milk. Now, originally this calls for about 1/4 cup, but because it's gluten-free and tends to be drier, if you need to add a little more milk, don't stress. You want to make this dough to be usable. You don't want to just go ka-chunk, you don't want to have blocks of dough in your muffin tin. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in the milk and see how that does, and then we're going to fold in the apples. So I've poured myself a little more than 1/4 cup of milk here. So we'll add that. Now I'm going to fold in the apples. And folding in the apples means basically just kind of coating them with dough, really. You fold them in. You don't want to stir really hard. You just kind of want to combine. And your dough should look like this. All right. Spoon the batter evenly into each cup liner, filling all the way to the top. Oh, gave you the wrong directions. So for the first 5 minutes, we're gonna have to up our heat here. For the first 5 minutes, you're going to bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 200 and 205 degrees, 218 degrees Celsius, sorry. 218 degrees Celsius. So, and you'll do that for 5 minutes. So we'll let that heat up to the proper temp while I'm putting the dough in the thing. So you'll bake the muffins for about 5 minutes at 425 or 218 degrees Celsius. Then you drop the heat back down to 177 degrees Celsius or 350 degrees Fahrenheit and cook that for another 15 to 18 minutes. So it's gonna be about 22 to 25 minutes depending. So I'm gonna use a regular spoon for this. You can use whatever you want, whatever tool you think would work best, but I'm just gonna use a regular spoon, and like I said, I'm gonna fill them up to the top. That one looks pretty full. I will add more to the others. So even with filling them up entirely, I have more dough left. So like I said, sometimes you only get 12 out of the deal, and sometimes you get more. There's 4 there and 12 here, so 16 muffins, not bad, not bad. Oh, but before we put these in, we will need a scoop of oatmeal to sprinkle over the top. So we'll be right back to show you that. So now we have a little bit of oatmeal, and really what you're just gonna do is you're just kind of like you were putting on sprinkles. Really, you just kind of sprinkle a little over the top. So you just put them in now and it says bake for 5 minutes. So we'll start with the 5 minutes, and then we'll drop the heat and do for an additional 12 to 18. So let's start with this. 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 218 degrees Celsius for 5 minutes. So the timer just went off, and it means now it's time to drop the heat from 425 down to 350 or 218 Celsius down to 177. So drop the heat and then set your timer for 15 to 18 minutes. I'm going to do 18 just to make sure it's fully baked. And don't take anything out of the oven, just let it keep going. And that should be done here in just a little bit. Okay, I usually have a cake tester. I have a metal skewer, so I'm gonna use that. It's a little bigger than I like, but the idea is to know if it comes out. I don't have any toothpicks for some reason. But, so test to make sure that it's cooked all the way through, because you don't want mushy. Yep. Oh, a metal skewer will work in a pinch. But, yeah. Ta-da! Gluten-free apple cinnamon muffins. Oh, and they smell so good. And as you notice, like I said, when you fill them all the way to the top and then you bake them for 5 minutes, it makes this lovely browned top that's kind of mounded. So you get a nice, the nice muffin look. And then the rest of it bakes when you do it for at a lower temperature. But it doesn't burn, which is the important thing. You're supposed to leave these in the pan for 5 minutes. And then after that, transfer them to a wire rack to cool completely. It says glazed muffins, which we didn't do, stay fresh, stored in the refrigerator for 1 week, unglazed. For 1 week. And unglazed muffins stay fresh, stored at room temperature for a few days, then transferred to the fridge for 1 week. These won't last that long, I guarantee it. They are going to go to an event, so we might have one left. But anyway, that's it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Definitely ring the bell to find out when there's new notifications and new videos to put up. Like and comment on this video, like and comment on other videos. Subscribe to the channel so that you know when new stuff comes out and you always get the heads up. And definitely sign up for my Patreon, because Patreon is a really good way to find out what's going on in my life, find out what new writing is happening, what new baking is happening, and it's kind of like an exclusive little club. But there's different tiers and you get all sorts of goodies. You can look through them. So that's patreon.com/c/Siobhan Muir. You can totally come by and sign up, and we'll see you there. Thanks again for joining us. Happy making, happy baking, happy eating, and happy reading. Bye.